Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to grab a cup of coffee and sit back and enjoy my conversation with Susan Marean as she shares about 2 significant solo travels in her life. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
We're going to dig right in and start talking about the first trip that you shared with me. And I want you to set the scene for our listeners and tell them where you were at in your life and what life events were happening that were the impetus for this trip.
I was engaged to my long-time boyfriend, Danny. We've been dating for 7 years, and we were engaged, so like I just said. And my brother had moved out to Colorado, and I was very, I admired him. He was like my idol. I have several siblings, but he was one that I always idolized. And he left for California when he was 17, and he went out there, and he was a party animal. And he went to church one day after a couple of years of really hard partying, and met this girl. And her name was Deanna, and fell in love with her. Absolutely fell in love with her. He married her. He brought her home back to Maine, which is where we've grown up. And we spent an entire month with her. And she was 2 years younger than I am. And just for the record, all of my siblings except for one are significantly older than I am. I have a very broad range. You know, my siblings are 10, 20 years older than I am.
Oh, wow.
Same parents. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's kind of fun. And so she and I connected on a lot of levels. We like to be silly. We like to go shopping. We like to eat. And so we had made a connection that I don't think I'd ever had with any of my siblings, because my closest sister is 7 years older and my closest brother is 19 months younger.
Okay.
And yeah, we don't, you don't get along back in the 70s with your younger brother. And my older sister didn't get along with me because she had to take care of me, right?
Sure.
So Deanna was very special. So I got woken up one night in August of 1988, and it was my brother, and I could barely understand him, but he announced that Deanna was dead. She had died.
Whoa.
And this is 3 o'clock in the morning, but it wasn't 3 o'clock in the morning for him.
Yeah.
Being out in Oregon. And, I don't know that anybody is prepared to hear that someone that they care about has died on any level. And this one was just incredibly powerful. So I have 6 brothers and sisters, obviously one of them out in Oregon, and we all decided, including my parents, to fly to Oregon to be there for the funeral for my brother. And all of my siblings chose to fly together, except for me.
Okay.
I wanted to be alone. I was a very quiet person growing up, and I really didn't want to share my grief yet. I didn't want to talk about it. And so I scheduled a flight on my own, and my siblings and my parents took different flights, and it was a very lonely experience because she was killed by a drunk driver, and my brother had found her.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was pretty powerful. It was pretty bad. Yeah, she was getting ready to go into a wedding, and she was meeting him at her mom's house, and his route and her route were not the same, so he went back to find her. So there's the big and the yuck. He backtracked. He found her. He found their dog, and found out, unfortunately, she had been killed by someone that had run on a red light.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was rough, but that flight, I wanted that flight and that trip to be alone because that's where I really actually felt safe, was alone emotionally.
So let's be real. As you're talking through the feeling alone, you're on a flight. You're not,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been there. Like I've been there where I am processing some major stuff when I'm on a
Mm-hmm.
flight because there's some version of anonymity
Yeah, there is.
on a flight.
Mm-hmm.
But talk about, because you were wise enough. It's one thing to like want to travel back home alone from going to this funeral, but you were wise enough to actually preempt that, and you traveled out there alone.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what you were expecting for that flight to be and do for you, and then what was the reality?
I don't know that I had an expectation because it's the first time I'd ever been on a plane by myself.
Wow.
So I think I was welcoming the challenge to be by myself and to manage it on my own because there's always been someone that's taken care of me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my time. My brother was alone now, and it was a time where I just felt like I don't think I had an expectation. My experience was that I didn't cry on the plane. I was I was pretty flat, very flat affect, and friendly to people as they came by. And I noticed that I still had some of those innate abilities to be friendly to people, but with that shaky smile, not the one, where I'm gleaming and feeling full of life, but just, okay, I need to smile so that I don't start bawling in front of a stranger.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. And I arrived there safely, no problem.
Sure.
My luggage didn't.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who's picking you up at the airport?
I took a taxi to my brother's house.
Okay, so you were not putting him in any area of responsibility. You were still taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What were you thinking about when you're on that flight? And how did being alone and actually still putting on that socially responsible smile?
I didn't know how I was going to help him. I didn't know what I was going to say. I was sick. I couldn't even wrap my brain around the fact that she wasn't existing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was my worst imagination when I walked through his door, because he was always the tough guy. So even though I was surrounded by people all the time, I felt alone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And not having my luggage, so I didn't have a dress to go to the funeral with at this point in the game. And the funeral was the following day, was terrifying because now he's talking to me. He's having to be responsible for me for a moment and show me his wife's closet.
Okay. And here we are. Like, you've gotten through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could spend hours talking through what that process must have been for you.
Mm-hmm.
But talk about why in this situation of all that family, which is important for support for so many reasons. Talk about why this was so important for you to do solo, and what your growth was from that.
There was a huge reflection of loss. There was a realization that we're all alone, even when we have people around. And I really had to rely on my faith to see me through it by myself.
Yep.
And I learned that I could do it when I want to, and even when I don't. That I have more strength inside than I think any of us give ourselves credit for.
Absolutely. How about the interaction with your family how did they take the fact that you needed to do this for yourself? What was their level of support?
I'm very fortunate. I have an incredible family. Very, very lucky. I grew up in a very Christian home, so it was always loving. And so they were very supportive, and we actually had some fun. We stayed in a little cottage, all of us, and we were jumping on the couches and the beds, and we're acting silly. And, we actually felt bad that we're actually having fun in a moment of tragedy. Mm-hmm. But it was also uniting as well. It was that connection. So what I realized is that I was very thankful for that flight to go to Oregon alone.
Absolutely.
But I discovered that I would have rather gone home with my family.
Interesting. Why is that? Because then you had made it through and processed. Why? Tell me a little bit more about why.
I think because I'm so comfortable being alone all the time that I never really at that age embraced family. Mm-hmm. Because my family was so spread apart in age, it was difficult for us to hang out. We didn't hang out and fight with each other. There was too many of us, and I had siblings that were married when I was born. Right. So I discovered that I had a lot more in common with my siblings in this moment.
Yeah, there is a uniting component of death, without a doubt, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you can't plan for that.
Oh my goodness.
No.
And amazingly, so I lost one of my very good friends in a car accident when she was 21. And we are so blessed that for the last 23 years, right around that time of death each year, we bring together all of her friends. And they've been coming to that gathering for over 20 years in celebration of her.
Oh, that's beautiful. She was never forgotten.
Right. And it's so powerful. I'm certain when you think back to that amazing relationship you had with your sister-in-law, it's still part of your heart.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And so and there is something to be said for travel to heal, and travel to especially heal with grief. Mm-hmm. But, when you look at the journey that you've done, there were parts where you really did take time for yourself, and there were parts where you made sure to surround yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Important.
Very, very important. Because I think that we all think we're going to break if we're by ourselves.
Oh boy. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I have to have so-and-so in my life. Otherwise I can't survive.
Well, and nothing is permanent.
No. No.
So that, what else? Is there anything? We're going to transition to your next story, Susan, but I want to make sure, because this is something that it's so close to a heart, right? And I know that there's other people who have experienced this and maybe haven't taken that time to heal themselves in those hard times of grief. Is there any suggestions that you have that, the lessons that you've learned from that experience that you would want to make sure that resonate with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when someone dies, people tend to want to help. And so they come and they want to just, wrap everything up, go do the grocery shopping, clean up, do whatever they can, take the dogs, take the kids. And the one thing that person that is suffering, that victim or that survivor, just wants normalcy.
Yes, they need their routines.
Yeah, and they need solitude, and it's actually okay. We get so afraid that, oh my God, if we leave her alone, what will happen to her? And luckily for me, my siblings were older, and they could foresee that I was okay taking off by myself, that that's what I needed personally, so they didn't shame me for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I think probably was the biggest one, is just acceptance and love and compassion, that I needed to make that choice to go by myself so that I could do my own processing of what I was dealing with without someone else's weigh in and comfort, if you will, for a moment. We do need it. But.
Absolutely. Yeah, everybody has to figure out their own journey through the grief. And that was a special relationship for you. And yet, as you were going and traveling, you were also figuring out how to be supportive for your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two different kinds of roles because you're also grieving for what he's lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So before we move on, I want to ask, like, is there a happy ending to the story?
There is. It's a beautiful ending.
I
Yes.
ask that in a situation like this, but please.
Yes. Oh no, this girl was so beautiful. And she, I think one of my favorite memories is she came to dinner with us, and we, obviously we're from Maine, so we provided lobster, and she took her fork and knife and tried cutting the lobster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't feel, I feel like I'm going to laugh really hard at her. Yeah. It's not going to be with her. It's going to be at her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she was a beautiful girl. She sang to my brother at their wedding. It was just spectacular. And he ended up going into ministry, and he met a woman about 5 years later, and she is his wife. And they've been married for 23 years now, and they have two amazingly beautiful daughters. And one of the elder one, she's 21. Yeah, I think she's 21. And she is married, and her younger sister is going to school to be a school teacher. So there was a beautiful happy ending. They spent 10 years in Azerbaijan, which is about 70 miles north of Iran. And then they moved back to Colorado, and they've got a beautiful, beautiful family. So there was definitely a happy ending to that.
That is amazing. And so it is one of those things of people have come into our lives and they've done amazing things to and for us. And now we're able to continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. It was beautiful.
Well, I want to then hear what happened in your life that was creating this opportunity for your next solo trip.
Okay. So I got married the following year to my high school sweetheart, and we ended up having 3 children together, 3 wonderful sons. And we discovered that we were distancing ourselves. He was more like a dad than a partner, and he would be the first one to admit that. And we struggled. His dad died, and then 2 years later, my mom died, and then a year later, my father died. Oh, wow. And I had made the choice, and I want to make that super clear, that I made the choice to move in with him and go to work. And participate that way and not go to school right out of high school, because we were building a house and I was following his lead.
Sure.
I didn't have an identity, really. I was just Danny's wife, right? And we had wonderful things, and we have amazing sons. But when I was 40-ish, after my dad died and both my parents are gone, the reality of my identity and my world at that point was, okay, so life is really fragile, and my kids are getting older. Mm-hmm. And I am not comfortable just staying right here and not going to school and pursuing some type of profession.
Yep.
I was volunteering in the school as the full-time mom. I worked. I was trying to be the perfect everything.
Yep.
Everything. Wife, mother, athlete, coach, you name it. I was doing everything for everyone else all the time.
Yes.
And we had the popular house. We had the house where everybody loved to come to the Mareans because it was just so much fun.
Yes.
And so when I choose to do something, I am like a powerhouse, and I'm not going to stop until I get it done. I get very motivated, and I get very, very stubborn. And if someone tells me you can't do that, which is what he did, I'll tell you, I went up to him and I said, okay, I'd really like to go to school full time. And he goes, okay, you've just ruined my future. And I went downstairs and I got on the computer. This is the 19th. Yeah, this is 2000. I got on the computer and I I applied to USM that day.
Well,
Yeah, it was like, I was like a
Yes.
feisty little, whenever, and he knew that whenever he said, you can't do that, or you'd never have time to do that, he knew that that's exactly what I would do. You know, I don't know if it was his version of do it, Susan, go, or I don't want you to, and I'm going to try to talk you out of it. And usually I can.
Wow. So interesting. I mean, so you
right?
know yourself very well in this situation, and yep.
So what led to that is I finished 4 years of school and got my BSW, and then I enrolled for an advanced standing master's class, which is a year long, and I was accepted into that, and so I really worked hard at getting my master's degree, but during this whole process, after my freshman year, we separated.
Okay.
So now I'm single, and I'm going to school full time. My kids are junior and senior in high school, and as it turned out, I graduated with my undergraduate with my oldest son. I graduated with my master's with my middle son. Had I gone on for my PhD, I would have graduated with my youngest son. I chose to stop.
Sounds good.
So when I finished my master's program, and now I'm launched, now I'm done, and now I go out and I find my career. And that was a bit daunting because now I have to exhale. Now I'm a single mom, and I have a professional degree, and I also have student loans, and I have responsibilities. And so there's a lot of fear attached. And I hadn't been alone since that 25, when I was that 25-year-old girl.
Wow.
Ever.
Right.
Ever.
Wow.
Once we were married, I was that person. I was there all the time. I was always at home with the kids.
Sure.
Always at home to be that parent, the best parent I could possibly be. And so I'd never, ever been alone. So I was encouraged to go on a solo backpacking trip for 2 nights.
Okay. So you're divorced at this point, but you still have kids, and you're going to go travel solo. So how do you tell people this? Especially because you don't need to ask for permission. In fact, permission is meaningless to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm 45 years old. I don't need to ask permission from anyone. I've got 2 kids out of high school, and the third is in middle school. And there was no permission. It was more of me saying, like, are they going to miss me? Right? Yeah. That was my bigger dilemma. I didn't care about going out in the woods. I've been backpacking and doing those sorts of things. And so it wasn't fear of animals. It wasn't fear of necessarily being alone. It was actually being alone and being missed, actually leaving. And I knew that I'd really enjoy my time. I knew I would.
Yes.
So it was well planned out. I practiced setting up a tent over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I had a checklist. I had a couple of people in my life at that point that were guiding me. I had already gone to the spot where I was going to solo. So it wasn't like this big surprise. I'm going to hike in 2 miles into the woods and have no clue where I'm going. I knew where I was going. I had a plan. I had a backup plan. Obviously, I had my cell phone because, God knows that's a lifeline. And I was ready. It was just really, really hard to leave my kids and say, I'll see you in a couple of days. 1 night's one thing, 2 nights is another.
Yeah.
And
backpacking. Before, is this your thing?
I love backpacking.
Okay.
And it is. It's a great soul searching time to be alone and to be in with yourself and to just check in and not be plugged into something all the time. So I was excited. And it was interesting because I observed every single thing I did.
Okay.
The weather, how I was really noticing the mountains as I was driving to New Hampshire, how loud my stereo was and how badly I was singing along with it. And, and I got out and I got a little lot nervous. The only I got my backpack on. I had my hiking boots on. I'm geared up. I got my trekking poles. I'm ready. And I thought, I hope nobody has seen me because I don't want to be afraid of a human.
Okay.
I wasn't afraid of animals.
Okay.
Animals are afraid of you.
Yeah.
I had no defense system against a human.
Okay.
So
how'd that feel?
Hyper conscious,
Okay.
hyper aware of my surroundings, like constantly checking back and making sure, okay, were there any cars that pulled over after I did? So there was a little while there where I was ambivalent about wanting to spend the night, wondering if I was going to be okay.
And what got you through? What made you? What was your tipping point?
That feisty little 16-year-old that is not going to take no for an answer. And I was not about to go back home.
Oh.
There was no way. I would have slept in my car before I would have gone home.
Okay. So what was your biggest lesson? What did you learn most about yourself?
Follow a plan or give yourself permission to deviate from the plan.
Tell me more.
So I hiked up. The first night was intended for me to stay in this cabin, and I cooked myself this lovely meal. It was awesome. It was amazing. Couscous and sausage and wine and chocolate and salad. It was awesome. But on my way in, it rained. So my clothes were wet. So my plan was I had a map, I had a GPS, and I had a compass.
Yep.
And I knew, okay, you never, ever, 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 ever deviate from a compass, ever.
Oh.
Ever you trust the compass. It's kind of like your gut, your instinct. It doesn't lie.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. So the following morning, I got up and I realized how happy I was just sitting there reading my book. It was sunny, it was bright, but my clothes weren't dry, so I couldn't go off for my hike yet. So my hike got delayed until mid-afternoon. And so me being the me, I decided that, why don't I just put my whole backpack on and I'll head down the trail and then I'll hike up. I'll just cut in and I won't go according to what was planned.
Oh, okay.
It's just a mile hike up to the summit.
Yep. How'd that go?
How not so well.
Okay.
You ever heard of bushwhacking?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That was my life for the next 4 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Not a good idea, because now I didn't have a course. I had a compass.
Okay.
And I was looking at my map but knowing that I studied these maps really well, I knew that the lines that get closer and closer mean that it gets really steep. So I hiked for about 5 hours. So my lesson was, what I learned about myself is, one, it's okay to just say, you know what, I'm going to sit here and just enjoy reading, and I'm going to spend another night in this cabin, and that's okay.
Sure.
I also learned that if you're going to follow that plan, you got to follow that plan.
Okay.
Because it can put your life in danger when you're by yourself, because there is no one to save you. And if your batteries on your phone die, you're really in trouble. So I really paid attention. That was another thing that I really noticed, is I paid attention. I paid attention to the fact that I could hear the cars down at the bottom of the mountain.
Okay.
So I had a conscious awareness that, okay, worst case scenario, I just head down.
You had a point of reference.
I did. And I also was paying attention to the sun. I was paying attention to my compass. I was paying attention to my time. 5 hours went by and you know what? Okay, I'm in trouble. I'm not going to reach the summit. I'd only gone about half a mile.
Okay.
So that's when I decided, okay, it's time for me to head back down. And back down meant now north, believe it or not.
Okay.
But at this point, because I was so determined to climb, I wasn't eating and I wasn't drinking my water. So now I'm dehydrated and I'm hungry and I'm tired and I'm frustrated and I'm discouraged and I'm emotional and I'm alone. And
yeah,
it was a moment where I had to really seek my comfort, seek my source, seek my faith, and trust that I had it. But you doubt yourself when you're in those moments.
Big time.
And when there's a big, huge little brook in front of you and there's a couple of logs and your only option is to get soaking wet or try to climb over these logs. And I've been doing that for the past 5 hours. Really wasn't interested in doing it anymore. But when I finally hit the trail, and the second night was designed for me to just pop a tent. Wherever I could find a space, pop a tent.
Sure. I
hit the trail, I fell on my knees and I cried for 15 minutes. And just had to have that release of, oh, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm still, I'm okay. I'm alone. I'm okay. I'm tired now. I'm getting scared, but I'm hungry and I know what I have to do. So I popped that freaking tent like 2 feet from where I was kneeling. And I didn't care if anybody walked up that trail, I was going to welcome them. Here, if you want anything, just help yourself. Take it. I'll help you out. I'll hand it to you. Yeah. Just don't take my tent or my sleeping bag. Right. I have everything else.
Right.
And I was glad that what I learned was, I was glad that I really was prepared for this. It was well planned out.
Right.
And again, it was one of those things where I felt really comfortable being alone until I was tired. Well, then I wanted the people in my life to.
True. Yeah. And you were like tired, but you were tired in a whole point of exhaustion. Mm-hmm. Like your ability to care for yourself went out the way as you were trying to be persistent through that mm-hmm. process as well. And so part of that is alone. And part of that is like just exhausted from all of from the lack of like self-care as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Years and years of taking care of everybody else. And there was no one there to help me and take care of me. So right. It was still all about me.
Yes.
Well, actually at that moment, it was all about me, not about somebody else.
Right. Okay. So you're processing through a bunch of the stuff that, had gone on for you and that you were still working through. And what were your like major aha moments, either during this process or in reflection?
My aha moments are, as women, I think that, and I think this for anybody, either gender, I think women don't tend to do as much because we're the nurturers, as far as like taking mm-hmm. off and going someplace, but that's changed so much over the years that I really can't make that a solid statement.
Sure.
But from my personal experience, I think it's really important to do it more often than once every 20 years.
True statement.
I think that it's a very healthy thing to do, to get away, to reflect, unplug.
Yep.
And just become aware of your own breathing and your own existence and how you contribute and what you don't contribute and where you're going and what your goals are and how do you want to live your life. You don't think of those things when you're plugged in and you're talking and you're listening to other people all the time.
Absolutely. So when you think about your future, does it involve more solo travel?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any ideas of what that looks like? Is it going to be that active backpacking kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit of both. I like going someplace, where my feeling is, okay, so what's my goal? And I go by my feelings about what is the feeling I want the outcome to be.
Sure.
Whether that's feeling relaxed or go be silly and dance and yep. surf or whatever, or what is my intention? I try not to go with expectations anymore.
I love it.
Because expectations tend to flub us up and disappoint us.
Absolutely. And I am all about this idea of traveling with intention and purpose and not necessarily this expectation. It's to create an opportunity for the world to give us, the universe to give us what we need, rather than to focus so much on creating exactly what we need. So knowing what we want to get out of it, but being open to that pathway.
Well, yeah, I think we have to be open, and that's something that, just being present. And I think that that's one of the things I learned in both experiences.
Yep.
Was just being present because there wasn't any other place I could possibly be.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any final words of wisdom to share with the listeners about, if they're on the fence about doing solo travel and, not just do it, but like, what has it done for your life to be able to say that you've done it and to be anticipating doing more?
Well, there's a lot of pride in doing something by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're doing it by yourself, you don't have to look and say, okay, John, thanks for planning that. Good job. I just went along for the ride. I found it very beneficial for me to do all of the planning from start to finish.
Nice.
Where do I want to go? Okay. Is it a place where I can be alone? Is it a place where I've been? The backpacking, I think research is critical.
Yep.
I think research and planning and practicing and even sleeping out in your backyard to start.
Right.
So that you get the idea of what it's like to sleep on the ground. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, because I'm going to do that for a couple of nights. Am I going to be okay doing that? And really owning your fear and facing it. Like, I think that challenging yourself with something that's bigger than you are is so rewarding when you can get to that point of saying, okay, so even though I had all these mishaps during that whole experience, by the way, my luggage did show up finally on the day of the funeral.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Man, I lost my train of thought.
Even though you have the mishaps.
I wouldn't trade either one of these experiences for the world.
I love it. It says it all.
Yeah, because life is a mishap all the time, and it's a practice, and we flub it up, and we can say it's okay when we're doing yoga or we're in the gym.
Yep.
And we can't quite finish doing, lifting a weight or holding a posture, but we don't give ourselves permission to have those flub ups in life.
Well, and yeah, we learn from our mistakes, people. We stretch and grow because we've screwed it up.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those things are not mistakes, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Because if you knew what you were doing, there was intention.
Exactly.
It's not a mistake. A mistake would be like, oh, I forgot to write that, put that 1 before the 6 on that tip. That's a mistake. Whoops. Can I fix that?
Right.
It's not, yeah, I went on that trip. That was a mistake.
It can happen, but I don't hear that often. That's for sure.
Right.
We have been talking a bit about, my focus is women traveling, but you've raised boys and they have a mom who's traveled solo.
Yep. Is
that something you encourage in them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, my 25-year-old son, he's been working in a job that he wasn't overly jazzed with, and he'd also lived with a bunch of guys that he was ready to kind of break away from that partying scene. And he was at a crossroad, and so he decided that he would like to go on a road trip.
Cool.
And he did. He just went out last fall, and he took 3 months. He quit his job. He just put everything, risked everything, but knew he had support at home to guide him and support him. And it was a great experience. And he had some really, really rough spots during that trip.
Good for him.
But he came back feeling empowered and, restored.
Absolutely. And with different perspective. It's all about it's all about, this is what I've grown up with. This is what I'm used to. The world might not always operate like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great awakening.
I love it. Well, some of our listeners may want to connect with you, and certainly this is an opportunity for you to share, if you'd like, any ways that they could connect with you, find you. If you have anything that you want to offer to the listeners, you're certainly welcome to do so.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm certainly on Facebook. I also have a clinical practice. I'm a clinical therapist. So I work with people that have depression and anxiety and mood disorders and trauma. And I also teach yoga.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I teach yoga for trauma, anxiety, and depression. So that's been a beautiful addition to my practice. And clients are really loving that because there's this moment where they're outside of their head.
Yep.
And they can actually have that opportunity to rewire and heal and cultivate generosity to themselves and safety and love and compassion and in a safe environment. So that has been quite beautiful. And so I do that privately, one-on-one, and I also do small group lessons. And I'm going to be teaching over East Point Church when they move over to their new location over by Home Depot, holy yoga. So that should be a new experience. I've never done that before.
Wow.
So I've got a wonderful life, and I've been blessed. I've had a lot of hardship in my life as well, but I have people in my life that I wouldn't trade for the world, and I have clients that I love what I do. I love what I do. Yeah.
Would you be doing this if you hadn't had that, if you hadn't lost your sister-in-law? Is this the same work you would have been doing?
I don't know. I think the work that I'm doing now is because of my mom.
Nice.
Yeah, my mom was a giver. She was a caregiver. She was the person that everyone turned to, and had so many people come into our home. And I tutored a girl, and she shifted.
Wow.
And her life started changing, and that's when I discovered, like, I really need to get into school. I need to do this for a living and not.
That's awesome. You know what? Our stories are so awesome. They're complex and layered and interwoven, and you can't just take one part of somebody's story and segment it. Instead, our travels are alive, and our life create the travels that we do, whatever that journey is. And I appreciate you sharing yours with us today.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
You bet. All right. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future, Susan.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Susan shared with us today? It's important to remember that taking time for yourself is not selfish. It's about self-care. Those who love you will be supportive of that. Well, we've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Go to transformviatravel.com to join the Go Solo Sisterhood Facebook community and share your thoughts. If you like what you've heard, please invite your friends to listen to Go Solo Live. And if you want to be a guest, reach out to me directly at jennifer@transformviatravel.com. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.